Sharon, can you tell me about how Maria's murder impacted you and your family?
It was very hard on our family, especially me, because I'm the only sister. Like, I have another sister, she's in Calgary, and so I went through it alone. I thought things like that only happen in movies or in a big city, you know, because me and Maria got close, very close, and it just destroyed my spirit. You know, it was just like part of me just died with her.
What was the most difficult part for you?
Well, when she disappeared and questions were going around, you know, where is she? What happened to her? You know, until when the police investigate more and said, well, don't expect us to find her alive. And that was the hardest part. And the hardest part is just waiting. Like, she disappeared in January, then April went by, and then they had to wait for the snow to melt to look for her, and then May went by, and they started searching for her in May, and there was nothing. And then June come around, and on the weekend they would bring the dogs down from Maine.
And why do you want people to continue to remember Maria?
Maria was a good person, and Maria didn't deserve to die like she died. It was an awful death. She didn't deserve to be treated like that.
And what message do you have for young people about violence?
Violence is not a good thing. If you love someone, you don't hurt them. You know, whether it's a man hitting a woman or a woman hitting a man, you don't hit. You don't call each other names. You don't hurt each other.
So can you tell me how Rhonda's murder impacted you and your family?
Well, I was 17 when it happened, so that's a pretty delicate age to have to deal with something as violent as it was. And considering Rhonda was only maybe 19, 20 months older than me, I guess it made the possibility of that stuff more real, because up until then that was probably just something that I had read about or heard about. Never could have imagined that it could happen in my family. Certainly not to my aunt, who was, 19 years old at the time. So I guess I had to grow up a little bit faster, maybe. I was about to turn 18 the next month and graduating from high school. So the impact was that it made violence in a relationship extremely real. As far as my family is concerned, that side of my family, the Lynch side, were a very quiet, private group of people anyway, and I think became even more so after. They kind of retreated into themselves, and no one really talked about it a whole lot right after it happened. And then the next fall would have been the trial, so of course they had to live through it at that time and hear testimony and pretty much relive, the days following them being found. But once that trial was finished, no one talked about it a whole lot, and I think simply it was because they didn't know how.
How's your family doing now?
My family now, I still think it's something very difficult for them to talk about amongst themselves. I've never heard them talk about it, not in detail. They will say Rhonda's and my grandmother's name, but they don't talk about exactly what happened. I think several of them still struggle with the whys and the hows of it all. I think that they've coped as best as they know how, but I really don't think that for some of them, all of their questions have been answered. I don't.
And what would you want people to know about Rhonda?
That Rhonda, that she's not and wasn't just, a young girl who grew up on James Street in Newcastle, or that she was just a young girl who got herself in a bad relationship that went totally off the tracks. She had as much personality packed into that little body as anybody can imagine. So she was dynamic, and she was fun, and she was funny, and she had a great sense of humor and a wonderful laugh. And she was a real person, she wasn't just somebody that you read about in a newspaper article.
So, as you're aware, on December 6th, it's the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women.
Yes.
Why do you think it's important to remember the 14 women that were killed in Montreal, but also to remember women like Rhonda?
So to remember the 14 women brings awareness. It brings, hopefully, some kind of solace to their families. They deserve that. It sends a message that violence against women is an issue, it's a problem, and it needs to be brought to the surface as often as we can and have a lot of attention shined on it. And to remember Rhonda is equally as important. Certainly we didn't get the national coverage that something like Polytechnique got, but we eventually had a light shined on ours as well when Rhonda was chosen as a silent witness. And I think those women in Montreal, as sad as that story is, have probably done as much for awareness of violence against women as any other topic or example that we could pull. That's probably the best, although it's the most tragic, it's the best one that we can use. And to continue using them is fitting, and it's just. And I believe that my aunt has a place in all of that, and certainly this community has chosen to uphold that, and I think that she fits in nicely with what we're trying to do.
And do you have a message that you would like to send to young people about violence against women and girls?
I do. I think that young girls today, first and foremost, need to understand that in a relationship you're still you, that what you bring to a relationship doesn't need to change because somebody wants you to or somebody thinks that you should, that a relationship doesn't define you, that you're still you, and to remember what love is and what love isn't. Nobody who tells you that they love you would hurt you physically. That's not love. And if they find themselves facing something like that, where they know in their gut that this isn't right, something about this person or what's happening to me is wrong, to seek the help. They need to talk to somebody they trust. They need to let somebody know what's been happening in that relationship.
So, could you tell me how Monique's murder impacted you and your family?
I would say it destroyed our family because we none of us seemed to know how to deal with it. It was just and we're still kind of struggling with it, I guess. Well, that was we are a bit struggling with it because we. I think it was just so intense. It was such a surprise too. Like, we had no idea something like that would happen to Monique.
So would there have been any warning signs to you?
No,
No.
there was no warning signs, no, because she had left him like 9 months ahead before that, and in fact I asked her one time, do you think he'd ever do anything to you? And she said no, Paul wouldn't do anything like that.
So you mentioned that it's still hard to deal with it. What are some of the things that your family finds difficult now?
I don't think we talk about it enough. We haven't been able really to sit down and talk and bring out our feelings, I guess. And there's the two children that really, I guess, that's the part that I find extremely hard, that she just loved those children so much, and they're on their own now. Like, they don't have a mother, her mother, like their real mother to take care of them. And I just feel that was such a loss for them.
So you realize that December 6th is our National Day of Remembrance and Action on
Yes.
Violence Against Women.
Yes.
And why do you think it's important to reflect on this day or recognize this day?
If I had it my way, I think we talk about it once a month. And it is important because it's happening just much too often. And I think the message, for some reason, isn't getting out to the people who should be getting it. And it's a story that needs to be told over and over again. In fact, I wish in the newspaper that they put the pictures of the ones who were murdered.
And on that day with our celebration at the college, we remember Monique as well, and as one of our silent witnesses. So if you were to tell people something about Monique, what would you like to say about her? What would you want people to know about her?
Well, I would like to say that she worked awful hard to become a physiotherapist. She loved her work, and she was an awful kind person, and just loved life, and her two children, and she had such hopes and such dreams.
Do you have a message for young people on violence against women and girls?
Yeah, if I could tell them to take their time before they get into a serious relationship, and to know who they're getting involved with, and also to look and know what the signs are, not to rush into anything. And if they do happen to see anything that's not right, don't think that it's going to get better. And they're not going to be able to make it get better, for sure. They're going to need help, and they're going to be able to talk about it and not hide that, because they will get hurt. And it's too bad, because oftentimes I think they let it go too long before talking about it, and then they're embarrassed, or I don't know why. They always seem they're going to make it better, and I think Monique did too. She really did. Even at her age, she believed that she could make that work, but it just didn't happen.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, Evelyn?
I just want to thank everybody who works on the victim services and for violence against women, because I find they're doing such a marvelous job, and there's a lot of work to be done yet. A lot has been done, but there's still a lot more, because it's still happening too often.